Hey everybody, this is Kevin with Nursing KAMP.com, and this is my Mastering Nursing School in Studying for the NCLEX course, where I cover the 7 most important things you need to know about studying for NCLEX, what to do during school, and what to do when you're studying with your friends, and how to approach this topic of nursing. So I recommend this one. This one's the most important one. And when we're going to start to look at questions and how we treat questions, and we treat questions like gold. So in my previous video, I talked about the Foursquares, and the Foursquares are going to show back up when we talk about questions today, because the Foursquares is another method that I use when we are looking at questions. And since you already know about that, we're going to move really quickly through this. Please see my other lectures where I talk about each and every part of this. So if you're struggling with any of this content, just look at those lectures and see what I'm talking about. If you have any questions, please message me on nursingkamp.com. I'm always available on that chat, so always reach out to me if you have any questions, especially if questions about tests or test questions or questions that you had on a book. Make pictures of them, send them to me, and I can talk about them with you. All right, so the Foursquares method is basically where we isolate our content areas. Burn list is where we basically take all this content, we put it into a burn list, and we compare our burn list with other students when we're studying. Today we're going to talk about NCLEX questions and how to study together as a group. And we'll talk about how each of the content areas, sleeps starts, so is about pathophysiology, so hypertension, CHF, PEs, hypothyroidism, Addison's, Cushing's are all sleeps. And it's where we evaluate whether we have full understanding on it. And these areas tend to be the most likely to be tested on when you're looking at it. And those are usually what your test questions are usually based on, the objectives. Do you know about these areas? And this is what you're most likely to be tested. The next thing is AWALS, where we look at medications. We'll be building that medication list in our lectures and when we're studying questions, and that's a big important part of today where we talk about that. And then we talked about procedures. There's only certain procedures that you need to know. You don't need to know all of them, but you need to know the priority ones like bleeding and people who are bed rest, and and it's usually centered around complications. And now we're going to talk about NCLEX questions. Okay, NCLEX questions are like gold, right? So whenever you have questions and you're studying questions, what you do not want to do is this. Look on a phone and just grinding, right? You're doing nothing when you're grinding through it. Because what happens is you look at it, you might be reading it, you get it wrong. Oh, look at the rationale. Yeah, I get it. Okay, next one. You never really learned anything. What you really want to do is treat those like gold, where every question counts, because it's a learning opportunity. It's to understand what it is. It's not just grinding through questions. I mean, that is not going to help you understand whether or not you understand the concepts or not. What you really want to do is utilize the questions in a way that you're able to isolate what you know and don't know. And how do we do that? It goes back to the Foursquares. And so what you do is whenever you look at getting ready to study, you sit down with the Foursquares next to you. And this is where you're going to continually work on this process. So if you're sitting down for a study session, for example, I generally will say don't do more than 25 questions in a set if you're doing it alone. And questions, they're all over the place. So there's a lot of different resources out there. Nursing Camp has over 3,000, 5,000, or whatever it is. There's different apps out there. Which one's better, which one's not, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What you really want to do is satiate yourself and saturate yourself into the content so that you understand what's being tested on. What is the most important? So what you do is you set up and you say, okay, well, I'm going to do a 25 question set. So you write your 25 down there. And then basically, you take a test. You look at the question, and you're like, oh, wow, look at that. There's hypertension. There's your content, right? You try to answer the question, go to the next one, okay? Was it negative? Was it a positive, right? And then you go on, oh, there's a Coumadin question. Okay. Oh, there's another Coumadin question. Got it? And so you keep on kind of going through it, and then you go through it. Then you basically give yourself a score. You know, how many did you get correct out of the 25? Right? And then what you'll do is that you want to be greater than 65%. That's NCLEX ready. Now, for school and stuff like that, you want to be 80 to 90% correct. And that's kind of your goal out of your questions. But what you're really trying to do is isolate what's showing up in this. Okay, so that's one way you study when you're alone. You just do 25 sets. You could do it on an app, but you do the 4 squares as you're doing it. So then what do you do after you do it? Well, after you do that study session, you did your 4 squares, then you study your content. What showed up that you missed, and then you try to figure that stuff out. That's what you study. That's what you do when you're alone, and that's how you start to do your content, right? I generally say for every topic that you have, you want over 500 questions. Not meaning like 500 questions on hypertension. So if it's a unit, cardiac, you want to do over 500. The more the better, right? And you just want to. Now, where do you get the questions? Well, I mean, there's a lot of resources. There's HESI, there's ATI, there's Kaplan, there's QBanks, there's UWorld, there's all these different ones. Is one better than the other? Not necessarily, especially in school. School tends to be content and on a little level of application. So what you want to do is, like, if you're studying for your NCLEX, this is how I set up my students for NCLEX, is do 25 sets and then do passing level questions. All right. So what about when you get together as a group? Okay. Well, at the beginning of the semester, when you start to set up your study groups and your groups together, right, you say to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to take all the questions from this book. This is a ATI book, right? And, you know, it's thick, right? But in my study group, nobody takes questions from here. I'm taking all the questions from here. Okay? That's it, right? So that's going to be my responsibility, is that I'm going to bring the questions from here. Okay? And then what you do is everybody gets their own book, right? It's a special book just for studying. Now, that's not saying what you do on your own time, but that's your book for your study groups. Okay, so then you say, okay, well, let's get together and we're going to study, all right? And what I generally say is figure out how many hours you're going to study. What you don't want to do is sit there going over your notes and saying, oh, he talked about this, she talked about that, that must be important, they talked about this. Nope, that's all inefficient studying. You're just grinding and you're burning through the information. You do that stuff before you get to a study group. What you want to do is value your study group. And the way that you value your study group is that, one, you show up with questions for everybody in the group. Okay, and you all do the same questions. And usually I say about sets of 10. Okay, and what I say is that you make 10 copies of the questions, and then everybody sits there and you get a minute a question. And so you sit there, you do a little timer, you say, okay, 10 minutes, boom, okay, go. And everybody takes their things, they do their 4 squares as they do it. Then you roll it. Who got on the first one? I got A, I got A, I got B, I got A. Well, we all got A, you got B. So why'd you pick B, right? And now I'll tell you why I picked A. Why'd you pick A? Why'd you pick A? Okay? You teach each other, and that's what you want to do. So then you go to your next thing, and then the next person says, okay, well, you know what? Now you walk away with a 4 square of a question set. The same thing. And you plus or minus, and then you also have your percentage. And that's what you want to keep on doing. Okay? And you can do, 10 questions takes 10 minutes, but then the discussion takes 20, 30 minutes, right? So, that's why, getting together isn't grinding all day long. I kick students out all the time from sitting all day long and studying. You're not studying, you're socializing, you're on the grind, you're studying, in nursing school, all that stuff. No. Be purposeful. Study your content, do it in sets. So then the other person says, okay, well, I'm studying from this book. And here you go. Boom, 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 boom. Let's do 10 questions. and everybody that does those questions. You do your 4 squares as you do it, and then you isolate, and then you move on. And then you teach each other why you picked that, why you picked that. And that's how you study when you're in a group. If you want to study, like, I mean, if you get something wrong, like a medication, and you know, if you could say, hey, what's your AWALs on that? You know it? No, you didn't, so that's probably why you got it wrong. And where does it fit? You know, that was a Coumadin question. Where's the AWALs fitting in there? Oh, it's in there. Oh, it's about when do you hold it, you know, the age, you know, and so on. So that's the NCLEX questions. That's how you study for the NCLEX, and also how you study in nursing school. So when do you start doing study groups for questions? Whenever you get together, you know, do sets. Do sets and see how well you're doing on sets, and keep on studying questions, 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 questions. You need over 3,000 questions to pass the NCLEX that you should have done. And when you're in nursing school, I say that you should be doing over 500 to 1,000 questions per content area that you're studying. And what happens is that, you know, don't study. It's more about the collective studying and understanding how to answer questions. My name is Kevin, and this is Nursing Camp, and this is a 6th part of my lecture series. Please see my other series videos on the different areas if you're unclear of what I was talking about. And I'm going to talk about the last portion, which is called conceptual camp, where we take a concept and we pull it all together in an analysis way in order to think about the content more visually. I'll see you next time.